Disguised as a servant, the widower Baron discovered a shocking secret that changed everything. Baron Whitaker stood in his own grand estate, clad in a dark uniform that felt like a shroud draping over the remnants of his once celebrated life. The sweeping staircase, once an elegant path leading to a future filled with dreams and possibilities, now felt like a weight, a reminder of the burdens he carried within. The soft patter of rain against the windows echoed the turmoil in his heart. How did he become this? A server in his own home, hiding behind a facade to shield Ella and Jake from the torment of their father's failures. Each night he served others, food, drinks, and smiles, while inside, a tempest raged. His mind was a battleground of emotions. Desperation clawed at him, propelled by the mounting pressure of unpaid bills and the choking silence that filled the rooms that once buzzed with laughter. Both Ella and Jake needed him, yet he felt lost, grasping for the man he used to be. It was a cruel twist of fate that had transformed him from an architect of hope to a mere phantom drifting through memories of a life that was slipping further away. Baron ascended to the attic, seeking solace in the forgotten corners. Dust danced like specters in the dim light as he rummaged through childhood relics meant to spark joy, treasures now draped in sorrow. Instead, he found a concealed box beneath the floorboards, an artifact from a family past he thought he had put to rest. His breath quickened, a knot of anxiety forming deep in his chest as he forced the box open. Inside lay parchment-covered documents hinting at a truth that threatened to unravel everything he believed about his family. A long-lost uncle, Samuel, presumed dead, now revealed to be alive, his wealth amassed through morally questionable ventures. As the revelation seeped into his consciousness, Baron felt the weight of shame settle around his shoulders. The legacy that should have brought pride now felt like chains, binding him to a narrative stained by treachery. A desire began to swell within him, a yearning to reclaim his family's honor. Yet the fear of what this journey might cost him loomed larger. What would it mean for Ella and Jake? Would they be tainted by the ripple of a dark legacy? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Baron wrestled with the emerging bonds with the household staff. Clara, the housekeeper who had nurtured his family through countless storms, and James, the butler, with his wisecracks masking years of wisdom. Their struggles mirrored his own, contrasting sharply with the expectations of a society that held them at arm's length. Each shared laugh and moment of camaraderie stoked the fire of his internal conflict. How could he expose his uncle's treachery and protect those who had become a lifeline? The impending family reunion haunted him, a potential reckoning where hidden truths slumbered, threatening to resurrect the ghosts of the past. With each tick of the clock, the walls constricted, forcing him to make a choice that felt like stepping onto a precipice. Baron stood at the edge, suffocated by the gravity of his moral dilemma. Could he bring justice to light without shattering the fragile peace he had built in this storm? As fear and determination intertwine, he realized that the decisions laid before him held the weight of redemption or ruin. Baron Whitaker stared at the box he had unearthed, its contents heavy with implications he had barely begun to process. The air was thick with anticipation, as his mind raced through the possible consequences of his newfound knowledge. Would unearthing his uncle's questionable past hurt his children's fragile sense of safety? The prospect of reclaiming his family's honor had never seemed so burdensome. Once, he had relished the idea of family legacy. Now it felt like a poisoned chalice. With no immediate answers, Baron slipped the documents back into the box and stood. He needed clarity, a fresh perspective. His 2 children were counting on him, and he'd be damned if he let them pay for the sins of the past. But with each step down the stairs, he found himself wrestling with questions that undermined his resolve. What kind of man was he, really? Something within him stirred as he entered the bustling kitchen, the scent of herbs and spices enveloping him like a warm embrace. Clara was preparing the evening meal, her presence a soothing balm against his tumultuous thoughts. The laughter of his children echoed from the living room, a stark contrast to the somber reality he was grappling with. He found it easier to focus on Clara's steady hands than on his own swirling emotions. "Baron," she called, sensing his distraction. "You look like you've seen a ghost." He managed a weak smile, not quite ready to unburden himself. The foci of his professional duties mingled with the intimate chaos of family life. Ella and Jake's innocence anchored him, transforming his uncertainty into a determined will that coursed through his veins. "Do you ever think about legacy, Clara?" he asked, more to find his footing than to spark a philosophical discussion. She paused, considering his question. "Only the legacy we create every day, Baron. That's where the real importance lies." Her simple words ignited a flicker of truth. Was it possible that in the face of family shadows, he could mold a new legacy? One built not on deceit but on integrity and understanding? With each passing moment, clarity dawned in Baron's heart, revealing a flicker of hope. As he watched the children play, an idea began to take shape, grounding him amidst emotional tumult. He noticed Jake defend Ella against a barrage of pretend dragons in their imaginative game. That resilient spirit echoed the very heart of what he had to fight for. Yet, the thought of confronting Samuel loomed over him like a storm cloud threatening to break. In that moment, the weight of his hesitations began to shift. What if he could take the first step toward uncovering the truth while ensuring that his children remained shielded from its ugliness? This transformation wouldn't just be about uncovering Samuel's past, but forging a path toward personal growth. Baron envisioned not just a confrontation but an opportunity for evolution, an embrace of vulnerability, honesty, and courage. But as the evening shadows lengthened, a nagging voice in his head whispered of repercussions. Would his actions lead to confrontations with Samuel that would reverberate beyond his control? The resolve started to solidify, yet uncertainty still coiled like a serpent in the pit of his stomach. Baron took a deep breath and stepped into the living room where laughter bubbled like a sunlit stream. If he was to confront the shadows lurking in his family history, he needed to prepare, and that required strength, a will ignited by a clear purpose. He would take command of this narrative, but it started with one crucial step. He had to meet Samuel. The thought churned in his mind, heavy with possibilities and danger. As he watched Ella and Jake delight in their imaginary world, he felt the urgency pulse through him. The moment of reckoning was near. Would courage pierce the fog of his doubts? Would he reclaim his legacy or condemn it? The hardest part of the journey lay ahead, and Baron couldn't shake the feeling that it would change everything. And just as that thought settled, the doorbell rang, echoing through the halls, a harbinger of events set into motion. Baron felt his heart race. What awaited him on the other side? Baron paused, his hand hovering above the doorknob. The laughter from the living room faded, replaced by the heavy thrum of his pulse. He had envisioned this moment, but now that it was upon him, he felt utterly unprepared. What awaited him on the other side? A friend? An ally? Or perhaps a shadow from the past he was utterly unprepared to confront? Gathering his courage, Baron pulled the door open. Staring back at him was a man he recognized, but had not seen in years. Samuel. The very source of his current turmoil approached with a practiced smile, yet it did little to dissolve the tension that hung thick between them. "Baron," Samuel greeted, his voice exuding a practiced charm that failed to reach his eyes. "I thought it was time we talked." The words cut through Baron's carefully constructed facade. "What brings you here?" he replied, his tone carefully neutral, while his mind raced with thoughts of how much was riding on this encounter. "I believe we have some matters to discuss regarding our family," Samuel said, stepping across the threshold without waiting for an invitation. The audacity of his action sent a wave of indignation through Baron, but he swallowed it down. This was not the time for emotional reactions. Introspection had built a sturdy wall against his instinctive responses, and he had to remain steady. As they moved into the living room, Baron noticed the way Samuel surveyed the cheerful chaos of his children at play. Did he notice the innocence in Ella's laughter, or the fierce determination in Jake's defenses against imaginary foes? Baron's heart tightened. He wouldn't let his children be pawns in a game between men who had been shaped by different legacies. "Have you come to gloat?" Baron asked, cutting straight to the point. The clarity of his anger surprised him, but he recognized it as a necessary element in this confrontational dance. "I'll admit, I have my reasons," Samuel replied, crossing his arms and leaning back against the entryway. "But let's not pretend this is all about the past. Our family name still carries weight, and you know as well as I do that there are things we need to resolve together." The sharpness of Baron's resolve sparked further, propelling him forward. "What makes you think I'm interested in what you have to say?" A flicker of irritation passed over Samuel's features, but he quickly masked it. "Because whether you like it or not, the decisions we make now will outline our legacy moving forward. We're bound by blood, Baron. This isn't something you can erase simply by ignoring it." His words hung in the air, a grim reminder of the choices Baron had to face. For all the struggles within, he sensed an unsettling truth in Samuel's assertion. It was a truth that echoed in the chambers of his mind. Legacy was not just about the past. It was about the future and the generations yet to come. "Whatever agenda you have, it won't involve my children," Baron said, his voice firm but edged with a warning. "I have no intention of involving them. Not directly," Samuel replied, his gaze sharp. "But your little venture into family history is going to attract attention. People are already whispering." The implications of his words struck with an unsettling force. Baron realized that every moment he hesitated, the narrative could morph into something entirely detrimental for his family. Was he prepared for the fallout that could come from confronting Samuel? What truths might surface that he was not ready to face? "Why now, Samuel?" Baron pushed, demanding clarity while grappling with the reality of his fragmented family legacy. Samuel sighed, the pretense slipping for a moment. "Because, Baron, there are skeletons in our closet that could be unearthed any day now. It's not just your past, it's ours." As the implication of shared secrets loomed, Baron felt the air grow thick with unspoken words and potential revelations. What Samuel hinted at sent an icy tendril of fear down his spine, leaving Baron steeling himself against panic. He realized that he had stumbled into a web of potential chaos. Would this confrontation grant him the clarity he sought, or plunge them deeper into the darkness of their family's history? The door to his legacy swung wide, but could he navigate its labyrinthine twists without losing everything he held dear? As the silence stretched, Baron braced himself for the storm, knowing full well that the next words Samuel spoke might change everything. Would he have the strength to endure, or would the revelations they unearthed break him? Baron felt the tremor of unease ripple through him as Samuel's gaze pierced through the room, dissecting the layers of his composure. It was as if Samuel held not just the secrets of their family, but also the key to Baron's very identity, one he had painstakingly crafted over the years. As the thrum of distant laughter from his children danced through the air, Baron felt a chasm widening between the man he was and the man Samuel believed he could manipulate. "Samuel!" Baron steadied himself, channeling the turbulent energy inside him into clarity. "If there are indeed skeletons, let's unearth them now. No more games. You carry your weight in shadows. I refuse to dance in them." Samuel's expression hardened, the air thickening with tension. "It's not that simple. You think this is about you and me? There are greater forces at play. Family trees have deeper roots than a mere squabble over past grievances. They can call forth blood feuds, Baron." Baron clenched his jaw. The mention of blood feuds resonated with him. His mind raced back to the stories whispered in his childhood, tales of betrayal and loss spun into their family tapestry. He recognized Samuel's manipulation for what it was, but the unease gnawing at him also fueled a surge of resolve. "You don't intimidate me with threats of the past. Then, let me offer you a glimpse of what's at stake," Samuel replied, his tone dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "There's a reason our family legacy carries weight. It's built on unsolved mysteries. Forgetting them will only invite calamity. What if the mysteries Samuel spoke of didn't only belong to the past?" The fear ignited a slow burn inside Baron, doubt creeping in. What if fundamental truths about his family were still twisting in the dark, waiting to pull him into their chaos? "What do you mean?" Baron asked, torn between skepticism and the instinctive need for truth. Samuel shifted, an unsettling smirk tugging at his lips. "You won't just have to face me. There are others who will not hesitate to step in once they catch wind of your inquiries. You may find alliances shift where you least expect them." Baron's heart raced at the thought of navigating treachery. He envisioned a world where loyalties were mere illusions. But beneath the anxiety, Determination blazed, igniting his resolve to confront whatever might come. "I refuse to be the victim of your manipulation. I'll face whoever comes." Samuel chuckled, but it was devoid of mirth. "Then prepare yourself, Baron. The truth you seek isn't always a friend. Often it wears the mask of a stranger." The words hung in the air, their weight suffocating. An unmistakable urgency surged, pushing Baron to recognize he was standing on a precipice, not just of familial revelations, but of self-discovery. He thought of his children, their innocence, and their future. The risk was too great to back down now. With every heartbeat, he understood that nurturing his legacy meant delving into the darkness, illuminating what lay hidden. "How do you propose we start?" Baron ventured, forcing himself to maintain control despite the turmoil in his chest. "By revisiting our foundation," Samuel said. "The old estate should hold more than long-forgotten memories. You'd be surprised at what lay buried there, untold stories waiting for reclamation." Baron's mind raced. The estate, a place he'd avoided since the rift between their families had widened. It pulsed with history, but it also felt like a graveyard of broken promises. Could he unearth truths and strengthen his own identity while standing there? "Leading me back into that labyrinth only brings you into a position of power," Baron declared, fighting to reclaim control. "I'll choose how I tread my own past, and I won't let you dictate my path." With a fire igniting in his spirit, Baron felt a shift within himself. He was ready to confront the shadows. Samuel would not dictate the terms. He would uncover the truths for himself, for his children, and reclaim whatever legacy awaited him on the other side. "Then it's settled," Samuel said, an edge threading through his words. "Let's unearth what lies beneath." As they stepped away from the bondage of previous assumptions, Baron felt a flicker of hope through the chaos. The hope that by facing the buried truths, he could navigate a pathway toward renewal. Yet, a pulse of uncertainty throbbed through him. What truths would emerge, and would they shatter the very foundation he sought to protect? With darkness encroaching on the horizon, Baron was poised at the juncture of his past and future. As they prepared to leave, a singular truth loomed. The greatest revelations often lay where fear was most profound. What awaited him within the walls of the estate could dismantle his fears or entrap him in new ones. Would he truly be ready for what lay ahead? Baron had never imagined that he would enter the estate under these circumstances. Two men burdened by history, cloaked in tension as they crossed the threshold of unresolved legacies. The air grew heavy, saturated with the scent of aged wood and dust, the atmosphere both oppressive and portentous. Each step into the main hall sent an echo through his mind. Memories of laughter and vibrant conversations now reduced to ghostly whispers. He could almost feel the eyes of ancestors surveying his every move, searching for signs of strength and resolve. "Do you remember this room?" Samuel's voice sliced through the silence, thick with nostalgia. "This is where Father held the annual gatherings. It pulsated with life. Words exchanged, futures debated. Now look at it, lifeless." Baron tightened his grip on the edged table, a mix of defiance and sorrow swirling within him. The estate had once been a cradle of dreams, yet as he inspected the peeling wallpaper and fading photographs, he felt the weight of regret pressing down on him. This place was a paradox, nurturing yet suffocating, familiar yet foreign. "Let's focus on why we're here," Baron replied, forcing himself to shift away from the emotions swirling in his heart. "What do you believe is hidden here?" Samuel grinned, an unsettling sight that sparked a flicker of wariness within Baron. "The estate isn't merely old bricks and memories. It holds the keys to our family's tangled past, dire secrets that shaped our paths. Some would say it needs a fresh pair of eyes." As Baron surveyed the room, the sense of foreboding deepened. If there were secrets to unveil, he needed to find them before they found him first. His mind raced through layers of family lore, old papers, and attic boxes long untouched. The task felt insurmountable, yet the stakes had never felt higher. "Tell me what you know, Samuel. You've hinted at buried truths. Are you speaking of artifacts or bloodlines?" Baron pressed, channeling his rising anxiety into a drive for clarity. "Ah, there are artifacts, yes. But the stories behind them?" Samuel stepped closer, eyes glimmering with a strange passion. "They resonate with betrayal, alliances crossed, and the shifting of loyalties. Our family has long skirted the edge of respectability. Would you deny that?" Baron met his gaze, feeling both challenged and compelled. The notion of an identity riddled with shadows was unyielding. It was his family's inheritance that he sought to clear, and he realized that confronting the discomfort of history was the only way forward. Samuel ambled toward a set of dusty portraits lining the wall. These pieces hold fragments of our past. He paused, inching closer to a depiction of a stern-looking man. He was orchestrating something grand, decisions that echo into our lives now. You, Baron, must reclaim what is rightfully yours. Only then can you shift the influence bestowed upon you. Baron's heart quickened, not just at the potential of discovering forgotten treasures, but at the call to fully embrace his birthright. In that moment, he was torn between the allure of the shadows and the unwavering light he desired for his children. Why do you care so much about this? Baron posed the question, grappling with the truth of Samuel's motivations. The curiosity in his tone masked an urgency that had begun to churn in his gut. What's your stake in all of this? Samuel's expression morphed into a mask of inscrutability. Let's just say, the more you acquire, the more you can protect. You don't yet know the weight of the secrets that linger here, or the forces they may awaken. With one last glance at the portraits, he strode deeper into the darkness of the estate. The chill of uncertainty wrapped tightly around Baron as each step drew him further into the heart of the ancestral secrets. Could he truly embrace his legacy when it seemed stained by deceit? His apprehensions took shape, teasing at the perimeter of his resolve. Gritting his teeth, he felt a push to descend further into the unknown, to face whatever lay within these crumbling walls. He needed to know what legacies still resided here, and if they could forge a new beginning. Let's uncover the estate's secrets, Samuel, he declared, finding courage through his determination. I will not shy away from what has been hidden for so long. But as he spoke, the shadows seemed to deepen, each corner pulsating with potential revelations that could either elevate him or cut him down. As Samuel led the way down a dimly lit corridor, Baron wondered, for every truth unveiled, what cost would it exact from him and his family? Would he find the strength to confront the intricacies tied to his lineage, or would he awaken forces that would lead to his undoing? The answers loomed, treacherous, yet inviting, urging him to navigate the complex web spun by his ancestors and redefine what it meant to be Baron. Navigating the corridor felt burdensome, weighted not just by the dust settled in the corners, but with the ghosts of choices made long before his time. The light, flickering from the occasional candle sconces along the wall, suited the unease gnawing at Baron's core. Each shadow cast by the wavering flame echoed his trepidation. He was treading the precipice of what had been hidden, and each step deeper into the estate felt like an audacious challenge thrown at the heart of his identity. The air thickened as they approached a door, its ancient wood splintered yet imposing. Samuel paused, placing his hand against it as if seeking permission to enter. Behind here lies not just history, but opportunity. Samuel's voice carried a clarity that wrapped itself around Baron, igniting a flicker of ambition within him. Baron took a breath, feeling the gathered momentum of caution and eagerness. Then let's see what opportunity holds, he urged, pushing past his companion and reaching for the handle. As the door opened with a reluctant creak, a musty smell enveloped him, and he found himself in a vast library. Towering shelves filled with leather-bound tomes spiraled toward the ceiling, and the room felt like a cavern of untold stories. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light that dared breach the gloom. Each book was like a silent witness, guarding the secrets of not just their family, but perhaps entire generations. Baron stepped gingerly into the room, and as he moved further inside, something caught his eye, an oddity nestled among other thick volumes. Pulling one from the shelf, he realized it was a journal, its spine cracked from age. The name inscribed on the cover sent a shiver down his spine. It belonged to an ancestor whose misdeeds were whispered throughout their lineage. Curiosity battled with hesitation. This felt invasive, as if he were about to stumble upon a crime scene long left untouched. Why was he so drawn to this legacy of scars? Baron opened the book, the pages filled with intricate scrawls. His mind raced. Could understanding this past be the key to restoring his present? Samuel had slipped into a shadow of his own, studying another shelf filled with dusty artifacts, oblivious to Baron's initial discovery. The quietude pressed against him, urging Baron to dive deeper. Reading, however, presented its own challenges. With each faded word, the ink seemed to tell tales of betrayal woven throughout the fabric of their family. Baron felt the weight of generations pressing at his shoulders, daring him to confront the ugly truths. The connection between the stories he read and the current state of his family began to crystallize. Decisions once made were now chains linking him to a destiny he had fought to escape. Each revelation was less of a story, but a revelation of lost opportunities and blurred ethics. Could he navigate these murky waters without losing himself? He felt a rising anger, ignited by betrayal. What were they thinking? He muttered, barely aware that Samuel had approached. They sacrificed so much for their ambitions. And for what? Samuel regarded him with an unsettling grin, an expression that danced on the edge of approval and mirth. Ambition rarely arrives without sacrifices, Baron. It seems you're beginning to understand the gravity of our lineage. But remember, the deeper you delve, the more you may find yourself tangled in its web. Baron lowered the journal, swallowing his outrage. If I don't confront this, what legacy will I leave for my children? Suddenly, the confrontation with not just his legacy but Samuel's retort jolted him. Was this just history repeating itself? In his reveries about the past, had he unwittingly become complicit in repeating its mistakes? They stood in the dim library, two men shaped by the same blood but divided by choices yet made. Baron felt the pulse of self-awareness surge anew. He realized he must navigate through these inherited conflicts, unwilling to remain a mere actor in someone else's tragic play. And as if reading his thoughts, Samuel leaned closer, a shadow in the candlelight. You know what you must do, don't you? This path could alter everything. Baron's heart raced at the implication. The weight of reformation bared its fangs, and the next steps began to outline themselves in his mind. Was he ready to reclaim not just the estate, but the essence of who he could become against the backdrop of history and betrayal? The air crackled with a sense of intention, and as Baron stared into the depths of the library, the shadows no longer felt threatening. They felt like an invitation, a challenge waiting for him to embrace. The moment was near. The confrontation with the past was but a trigger for drastic reconstructions of his identity. But would he claim the opportunities swirling around him, or would he succumb to the very shadows he sought to evade? With uncertainty still lurking, Baron understood one thing. Action was required. The clock was ticking, and the shadows were not the only force he needed to reckon with. The true test of character awaited him, and he knew he couldn't face it passively. What ancestral force stood ready to emerge if he dared challenge the darkness? Baron's fingers trembled as he turned the brittle pages of the journal, drawn further into the tangled narrative of his ancestor's life. The scrawls could very well be a map, charting a course through the stormy seas of ambition and betrayal. Each word was an exposed nerve, and Baron felt himself slipping deeper into this unfamiliar territory, where personal identity blurred with familial legacy. I won't be chained like they were, he murmured, feeding a burning resolve that pushed back the echoes of failures past. The decisions and ambitions of those who came before him had cast a long shadow, but he sensed that within this darkness lay a potential for transformation. Rather than just a historian peering into the lives of bygone relatives, Baron felt an emerging sense of agency. This moment wasn't merely about uncovering secrets. It was a profound confrontation with his own fears and desires. The path ahead no longer felt predetermined. For the first time, he considered embracing the authoritarian nature of his ancestry while rewriting its narrative. What do you hope to gain from this? Samuel's voice pulled him back, raw curiosity fueling his inquiry. Understanding, Baron replied, his voice steadier than he felt. Clarity. He recognized that if he was to claim his legacy, he needed to wield knowledge as both a sword and a shield. In understanding the misdeeds of his forebears, he believed he could transcend them. With a sense of purpose igniting his spirit, Baron dove back into the journal's revealing depths, piece by piece disentangling the emotional weight of a historical narrative, heavy with the sins of pride and greed. The stories of lost opportunities began to resonate with his own life. Had he too been sidestepping his own truth? Baron's hesitance dissipated, replaced by a poignant conviction. If these were the mistakes of his ancestors, surely he could forge a different path. He could use the bittersweet taste of legacy not to anchor him to guilt, but as a catalyst for bold action. An unexpected passage caught his eye, one that spoke of a hidden chamber within the estate, unused for generations. It was a room where decisions were made, dreams dashed, and destinies redirected. Intrigued and invigorated, Baron realized it was time to reclaim that space, not just as a physical room, but as a metaphor for taking control of his life. "We need to find this chamber," he said, the fire in his voice mixing with urgency. Samuel nodded slowly, a flicker of intrigue washing over him. "You're serious, then?" "Yes. I'll not merely confront the past. I'll occupy my future," Baron insisted, transforming resolve into action. The path ahead was fraught with potential risks, yet for every fear that had shadowed him for years, a new courage blossomed. As Samuel led the way once more through the dimly lit corridors of the estate, Baron's heart raced with each footfall. The walls no longer felt like a gallery of blame. They were, instead, a grounding force reminding him that he was not only connected to those that had come before him, but empowered by them. Their choices could serve as signposts, guiding him away from their miscalculations. The air hung thick with anticipation as they reached a door marked with intricate carvings, different from all others within the estate. This door felt alive, pulsing with the weight of history begging to be released. Baron placed his hand against the cool wood, feeling the energy hum beneath his skin. "Are you ready for this?" Samuel asked, his voice low, an almost conspiratorial caution wrapped in curiosity. Baron only nodded. Understanding this moment encapsulated not only a discovery, but a confrontation with his own identity. As he swung the door open, a musty, stale aroma poured forth, a blend of dust and forgotten memories. There lay a space lined with various artifacts, tables filled with documents, and perhaps the remnants of plans unfulfilled. He stepped inside, heart pounding, and realized the complex tapestry of centuries held lessons for him, ones begging to unfold and inspire. Every choice shaped the present, and Baron quietly vowed that this time he would not limit himself to the echo of the past. He was destined to break free. But the weight of that destiny came with the enormous responsibility of thoughtful choice. A movement caught his eye. Just as he began to absorb the gravity of this newfound space, he noticed the glint of something on the table, a box worn with age yet beckoning him closer. What secret did it contain that could alter his understanding of his lineage even further? The question hung heavy in the air as he approached, unaware of how the unfolding truth would reshape everything he believed about himself. The air was thick with unease as Baron stepped toward the table. His heart drummed loudly, an insistent reminder of the stakes involved. What lay inside that box felt heavy with gravity, an opportunity not just for understanding but for transformation. Through the years, he had skirted the danger of probing too deeply into his family's past, afraid that the weight of their misdeeds could crush him. But with each breath, he felt the resolve coiling tighter within him, urging him on. As he lifted the lid, a cloud of dust erupted into the air, swirling around him like whispers of long-buried secrets. Inside, an array of documents lay carefully folded, their edges tinged with age. Parchments written in a meticulous hand showcased different names, dates, and places. Baron's fingers trembled as he sifted through them, his mind racing with possibilities. The jumble revealed snippets of correspondence, discussions of political alliances, coded messages of threats, and even an arrangement for a hidden transaction that promised power in exchange for silence. "What the hell?" Samuel breathed, leaning closer, his eyes wide with disbelief as Baron pulled out a particularly aged letter, the ink faded yet still legible. It mentioned a final agreement and a name that sent chills down Baron's spine, his own. Adrenaline surged through him as he read words that seemed to suspend time. "Why would my ancestor involve me in this?" he whispered to himself, disbelief mingling with an eerie recognition. This was more than just a part of history. It was a pivotal point that suggested he was bound to something far greater than himself. Could the threads of his lineage lead back to coercion? A legacy tinged with treachery? Samuel's hand rested on Baron's shoulder, grounding him. What does it mean? Baron felt the edges of his identity begin to fray. All at once, his family's history shifted from shadows of regret to burdens of potential. They weren't just dead relics, but living ghosts whose decisions shaped Baron's present in ways he never anticipated. The weight of expectation bore down on him, mingling with an inexorable desire to understand. "This is a starting point," he breathed, conviction surging. "I must know the whole story. There may be more to uncover. Consequences that tie my future to theirs." A tingling sensation reverberated through him, igniting a spark of clarity. Each revelation he gleaned would not only reshape how he viewed his ancestry, but also how he chose to govern his own life. The room felt alive with promise and trepidation, compelling Baron to remember he had the power to amend the errors of the past. As he collected the documents back into the box, his thoughts deepened. This moment was about personal evolution. The combination of his ancestral weight and fierce determination was forging a new clarity in him. However, amid the intrigue, doubts nagged at the edges. Would he uncover truths that could divide his family further? Should he confront the legacies that might paint his present with colors darker than he could bear? His mind raced with implications, wary yet impulsive to claim his identity and future. Baron's pulse quickened as he recalled his ancestors, those figures steeped in circumstances beyond their control. If he was to reshape his destiny, he had to confront the forces that sought to bind him. The thought was daunting, yet invigorating. This journey demanded both courage and wisdom. But just as he turned to share his thoughts with Samuel, a low creak sounded from the door, pulling his focus sharp. He turned, anxiety knotting in his gut. The shadows, or perhaps a specter, seemed to flicker at the threshold. Who or what might await them just outside, bearing witness to the revelations inside? Baron's heart raced. The realization that he was no longer alone in this delicate web of history flooding his senses. The time had come to face not just his past, but potential threats that could upend all he was striving to accomplish. Baron's breath hung in the air as he turned toward the door, uncertainty twisting his gut. The faint outline of a figure wavered in the shadows, barely visible yet palpably present. Every instinct urged him to react, yet the gravity of the moment rooted him in place. Samuel remained by his side, his posture tense, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. "Who's there?" Baron called, projecting authority even as the words trembled on his tongue. The reply echoed in the silence, a faint rustle of fabric. It hinted at someone close, someone who had been lingering, eavesdropping on their clandestine discoveries. A hesitant voice floated through the door. "It's just me, Marie." The source emerged, revealing a woman clad in modest clothing, her demeanor one of careful precision. She was familiar to Baron, a distant relative, someone whose presence he often took for granted. Her face was pale, and she wore an expression that suggested she had just stumbled upon a truth too heavy to bear. "What did you hear?" Baron pressed, the urgency in his voice driving the question like the point of a dagger. Marie looked from Baron to the box on the table, her anxiety palpable. "Only fragments. I could not help but overhear. We have family ties that reach further than anyone knows. Secrets that could unravel everything." Baron's mind raced, his previous cravings for the past now morphing into an overwhelming need to protect what lay ahead. "You know something. Tell me," he urged, determination hardening his resolve. This wasn't just about his history, but the potential consequences that could unravel his family relationships if he pressed onward without caution. "Years ago, when your father was still alive, I was entrusted with—" She hesitated, her words fumbling. "A set of letters. Damning letters that could implicate many of us. Your family was entangled in affairs that—" The intensity shifted in the room, a palpable tension that seemed to close in on them. Baron's pulse quickened. He felt the looming threat of his familial legacy growing heavier, yet a fierce compulsion to uncover the truth wrestled its way to the forefront of his thoughts. What revelations laced those letters? What repercussions awaited him if he acted carelessly? "You must understand the risks, Baron," Marie continued, her concern evident. "These documents could ignite a firestorm. It might tear apart what's left of our family." A storm brewed within him, urgent conflicts whirling around instincts of loyalty and the pursuit of truth. He wrestled with the weight of her warning, but felt the surge of determination flip the scale of his considerations. Walking away was no longer an option. He needed to take control of his narrative before it consumed him. "What can you show me?" Baron beckoned, his voice lowering to almost a whisper. He could sense the pivotal moment before him. steeped in peril and potential. Taking a small step back, Marie nodded, her expression resolute. "Follow me. We must be cautious. But it's imperative you know what you're carrying on your shoulders." They slipped through the door, Baron's anticipation fueled by a mix of trepidation and resolve. Each step felt like a descent deeper into the black waters of his family's history, illuminating secrets murmured and buried under layers of deception. As they retreated into the dim corridor, Baron realized this was no simple journey toward understanding. He was beginning to unearth the limits of his own courage and the capacity for sacrifice that lay dormant within him. It was a reckoning, not only with his forebears but with himself. The question echoed in his mind. Was he ready for the truth, no matter how dark it proved to be? Just as they reached the end of the hallway, Marie paused, turning to meet his gaze with a gravity that weighed heavy. "There's something you need to understand about the nature of our family's legacy. A decision made long ago could alter everything you thought you knew." Baron prepared himself for the revelation that lay just beyond reach, feeling the shutters of his future teetering on the precipice of hidden knowledge. The past loomed over them, and the stakes felt perilously high. Would he forge ahead into the chaotic unknown, or would fear drive him back to the safety of ignorance? He was about to confront more than just history. He was ready to face the full complexity of his identity. The truth beckoned, pulsating in the dark corridors of his family's history, and Baron knew this was only the beginning of a much larger confrontation. As Baron followed Marie deeper into the estate, a thrill of anticipation coursed through him amidst the thick air of hidden legacies. Every step forward was a march toward understanding, and yet each stride was underscored by a pulse of fear. What revelations awaited him beneath the surface? The corridors twisted and turned, guiding them into a vast room bathed in shadows, a hidden study rich with the scent of old books and untouched secrets. "This is where my father kept the letters," Marie said, her voice low as she gestured to a wooden chest nestled in the corner. "I hope you're prepared for what you might find inside." The mere mention of the chest set Baron's heart racing. It was singular evidence of his family's entangled past, a key that might unlock truths cloaked for generations. He approached it, determination fueling his steps. Ignoring the weight of apprehension that gripped him, Baron lifted the lid. A cascade of yellowed paper greeted him, fragile and brimming with history. His fingers trembled as he gingerly pulled out the first letter. The ink faded yet still sharp in its content. Words leapt from the page. Accusations, confessions, veiled threats encapsulated in ink that seemed to pulse with vitality, revealing family disputes, illicit dealings, and betrayals that traced back to pivotal events in their lineage. Baron felt a hot rush of shame. His ancestors' mistakes echoed painfully in his mind. They had sacrificed integrity for ambition, allowing greed to define their legacy. Yet amid the overwhelming sorrow, an ember of resilience sparked. Every decision made is a choice for the next generation, he realized aloud, the clarity cutting through the fog. Baron inhaled deeply, feeling the heat of commitment rising within him. If it took unearthing these truths to protect his children's future, then he would not shy away. He was equipped with revelations not just about the past, but about the weight of responsibility that came with legacy. Marie watched him closely, sensing the transformation taking place. "The more you learn, the more you understand. Your fate isn't solely yours. It's tied to the choices we all make. You have the opportunity to redefine our family's narrative." The gravity of her words hit him profoundly. This was not just about him. It was about breaking the cycle of malfeasance that had gripped their family for generations. Baron envisioned a legacy grounded not in deceit, but in honesty and integrity. A pivotal shift that would alter how his children perceived their heritage. Pushing through the tumult of emotions, Baron felt a sudden resolve cement within him. Grasping a particular letter that outlined a binding agreement steeped in malice, he declared, "This cycle ends now. I will confront the shadows that have loomed over us for far too long." As the weight of his new understanding settled in, he felt an unexpected lightness. The dread that had once encased him like a cage now transformed into clarity. He would no longer be the prisoner of his family's past. "What's the next step?" Baron asked, pulling himself from the abyss of his thoughts and redirecting his focus to Marie, whose gaze showed a mix of admiration and encouragement. "We confront them, the ones who carry on this legacy. You need to gather allies who will support your mission for change. Her tone morphed into one of urgency. Time is of the essence. Others will seek power, and they won't hesitate to ensure you don't disrupt their plans. Baron nodded resolutely. The dread of not knowing how deep the rabbit hole of deception ran was eclipsed by a surge of urgency. He was ready to reclaim his narrative, to build a legacy that would nurture, rather than imprison. As they made their way back toward the main hall, Baron's mind ran through the details he would need to confront Samuel. Flanked by newfound allies, armed with the truths he had exposed. An intricate dance was brewing ahead, one that would uproot the ghosts of their past and set the course for a brighter future. Sensing his determination, Marie placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him. "You've found your purpose, Baron. Trust your instincts, and wield this knowledge wisely." As Baron stepped back into the main corridor, a wave of bravery washed over him. The echoes of doubt faded, leaving only a firm conviction. He was no longer just a bystander in a drama crafted by the sins of his ancestors. He would navigate this terrain with integrity, rooted in understanding, capable of transforming his family's narrative into one of honor. And in that resolve, he felt the weight of uncertainty morph into a profound sense of duty, a necessity to lead not just for himself, but for Ella and Jake, for a future unshackled from the shadows. The moment of reckoning had arrived. He was prepared to battle the specters of the past and reshape their legacy into a beacon of enlightenment. The thought ignited a flame of excitement within him as Baron grasped the handle of a new beginning. With courage blazing in his heart, he walked forward into the unfolding storm, ready to confront the echoes of his heritage and emerge renewed. Now, more than ever, he knew. This was his moment, set free from the burdens that had once shackled him. Baron Whitaker was not just a baron, but a man poised to transform his family's legacy for generations to come. A man ready to write a story of triumph and redemption. The journey had only just begun, but he was fiercely committed to its path. His future, and that of his children, depended on it. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. It makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this riveting conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring journey. The time is now to spread this legacy far and wide. Don't wait even one more second.